Welcome to the Sideline. I'm Andy Katz. Well, this is going to be a home for a lot of original content in college sports and beyond. Now, of course, you're going to get a lot of that similar content that I produce for NCAA platforms, for Big Ten Network, and other places. But I needed a home for a lot of those interviews with the newsmakers in this space. So where are you going to find it? Right here at the Sideline. Let's get to it. All right, welcome everyone to a March Madness chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Tommy Lloyd, head coach of Arizona, the number one seed in the West. Real quick before we go forward here, just put, sort of a wrap on the Big 12 because it was an unbelievable regular season conference tournament. You've been now at this for a couple of years in this league. What are your thoughts on what you just went through in that gauntlet?
Man, I might have PTSD a little bit, so I don't know if how good my recall is going to be. But it was awesome. It's an awesome experience to compete against the best consistently. The other coaches in the league are so good, and just the adjustments game to game or within the game. It feels like it's never ending. And then the league's been able to attract a lot of talented players. So just felt like every night on the court, you're like, man. I know maybe in the standings they don't look great, but that guy's really good. And so just sorting through that stuff was fun. But, after a while, it kind of becomes your new norm. And you get comfortable, competing at that level and you actually you really enjoy it.
So I remember at the beginning of the season, we had your game or opening game, and Jaden Bradley was awesome that night, closer. And then just everything got better and better and better. And then
Yeah.
bam, he's the Big 12 player of the year. How did he evolve into becoming not just the closer, but literally the player of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, Jaden's put on like a lot, you say it's for everybody, so it's a little bit of a cliche, but he's put in a ton of work outside of the season, and he's been patient. He's been patient, waiting his turn to kind of be in this spot, and I mean, he's just such a good person, and obviously he's a really good player, and the combination of those two things really allowed him to thrive because what it did, being such a good person, he allowed for other teammates and younger teammates even to come in and have a seat at the table. And so it wasn't all about Jaden. This wasn't like, Jaden's year. It was about the team. And so I'm just thankful that he's getting rewarded for all of it and all the recognition is happening because, maybe, in certain instances you have players like JB that are your leader and, your quote unquote MVP, but they don't get the accolades because maybe, they're not as quite as athletic as a certain guy or don't have the same stats as another guy. But they're probably the most important person when it comes to just winning consistently. And he's been that guy for us.
And on the freshman, early on, Cole Pete was, like first team All-American type freshman, then kind of just, hit a little bit of a normal freshman part. And then Braden Burries was hurt early, and then he took off. How would you describe the way both of their seasons went?
Well, on Koa, I mean, if you're talking a normal freshman year for what he did, wow,
No, I
Andy,
mean,
you you
he
you
was like,
really changed. Well, come on, who's going to sustain that? Who's going to have a 30-point
I know,
game
I know.
on the first game of play? Like he's had an incredible year, and he's gotten a lot better at both ends of the floor. And kind of our recent uptick, I think a lot of it is because Koa coming back energized and being reinserted into our lineup. And then Braden started out a little slower and then really came on, and to me, I mean, if I had a little note in my desk here, that I wrote early in the season and sealed it, I think I would have guessed those two things would have happened because Koa is physically ready to compete, had played at a high level, and just had an incredible motor. And I don't think college basketball quite knew what to expect until they saw him. And then Braden, I felt like he was just going to be a little slower to come to his full potential. And he just needed a little bit of experience to put on top of his talent. And but listen, I was watching film this morning, kind of just recapping, our tournament just so I can, still coach and teach our guys. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? So, and I mean, there was one possession where like Karchinkov threw like a pretty hard pass to Koa Pete. Koa Pete makes a pretty tough catch, gets double teamed, skips it to the top of the key, and Burry hits the three. And I'm like, wow, those guys just did that at that moment, like, unabashedly, like it was normal. And so I think those three guys, are built for what we're doing right now.
One last thing on the players, and we'll look at the matchups here real quick. Um, the 3-point shooting, like first of all, Anthony Delostro, I mean, it seems like he's come on at the right time,
Yeah.
sort of filling another void if there was questions, about some of the perimeter shooting.
Well, yeah, I mean, Delhi, he really stepped up, especially big. I mean, he'd been good down the stretch of the season for sure. And, especially when we were dealing with some injuries. And, then he got injured himself. It was a pretty real, a legit ankle sprain he had to kind of deal with for a couple weeks. And then obviously in the Iowa State game, he was great. And, he hit a number of big shots that really, gave us a chance to win it at the end. Um, yeah, so no, I mean he's been awesome all year. And then the thing with Delhi, he's such a great guy. He played so good against Iowa State, and he obviously wanted to play good against Houston. But I was like, I don't know if that one's in the cards. I mean, and I told him after the game, and thanked him because like if he didn't do what he did in the semis, we wouldn't have gotten been able to do what we did in the championship. And he's like, yeah, Coach, sorry I didn't play good. I'm like, Delhi, come on, relax. Like he scored like 20 some at Houston. And then he had 26 the night before we played Houston again. I don't think Houston's gonna sleep on him. And he didn't have a lot of space to work with in that Houston game, but he's definitely had a real impactful senior year for us.
All right, so let's look at your mini 4-team tournament in San
Yep.
Diego, LIU, and if you win that, you've got either Utah State or Villanova. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, we respect all competition, and LIU. I mean, what I tell people, in this day and age with the play-in games, the teams that are the true 16 seeds are probably a little different than they were 8 or 10 or 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So like you're gonna have a legitimate team you're playing, and that's legitimately talented. And in this age of transfer portal, a lot of those players going to these schools are going to have bounced around a few places and finally found a home towards the end of their career. So they're going to be older and they're going to be hungry. Um, and then that team's going to have played well because they're going to have probably won or been at the top of the standings for the regular season, and they're going to have to won their conference tournament. So they're going to be feeling good about themselves. So like it's a real challenge. I mean, no matter what anybody says, the 116 game I've played in quite a few of them. I mean, they're real, they're legit, and I don't know any coach that takes them for granted. And we're preparing for LIU like we would preparing for Houston. That's our mindset. And then obviously Utah State's been such a good, consistent program, on the West Coast the last number of years. It doesn't seem to matter who coaches there; they're all
Yes.
good, and they win and they're formidable. And obviously Villanova, I got so much respect for. I mean that program and Jay Wright. I mean Jay Wright's one of the icons, in this business. And any younger coach like me should look at a guy like Jay Wright, and that's what you should aspire to be. So we have a massive amount of respect for all those guys, and we're looking forward just to competing with them. It's going to be an honor to be on the same floor, with LIU, and then hopefully we can find a way to get through that one and play another one on Sunday against either Villanova or Utah State.
And Kevin Willard, the current coach, too.
Yeah, Kevin Lloyd for sure. I mean, Kevin's great. I don't know Kevin as well as I know
Yes,
Jay, so
yes, I
no
know.
slide at all. But he's done a great job. I mean, we were in the same pod as them last year up in Seattle, but on opposite sides, opposite
Right.
14 deals. So I didn't really get to interact with him, but he's done a great job. And I know Villanova has been hungry to get back, to the prominence and the pride that program has. And he seems like he's done a great job in his first year. I mean, I think with a completely new roster, so that's pretty impressive.
Last thing is you've been a 1 seed, as you said, as an assistant at Gonzaga, where you've been expected to win it or win it all.
And as a head coach at Arizona,
Yes, no, I know. I was going back a little first. Um, so you've had that as an assistant, then you had it
Uh-huh.
as a head coach.
Hmm.
So you've seen it from one seat to the other,
Yep.
and now you've got it again.
Hmm.
So how do you navigate these next couple of weeks if you're fortunate to keep advancing as the favorite or as a favorite?
Well, for one, the favorite or not favorite doesn't matter to us. That's your space, Andy. That's what you get to dream up in your little basement down there in your little studio. Like you get to make all these things up. For me, I actually got to play against the other team. And so like I can't go to the other coach and say, "Hey, we're the favorite. Can you take it easy on us?" Like that's not how it works. So the ball's going to go up. It's going to be 0-0. Going to two 20-minute halves and maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes more. So we're
Well,
going to
all
go.
right, let me rephrase it then.
Yeah.
What does it take? Because you've been there
There you
as
go.
an
Yeah.
assistant in the Final Four, playing for the championship. What does it take to get there?
Literally do the best job you can staying in the moment and not getting ahead of yourself, not being fearful of failure, acknowledging, you could do your best and still lose. I mean, that's a reality because you can't be scared. And so to me, the just that full focus, in the moment, kind of mentality is what's really important. And obviously we all know what it means. So it kind of should almost go without saying, what's on the line. And we this is kind of it's your life's work. But what you can't do is you can't freak out. And you got to stay poised, and you got to enjoy the moment, enjoy the experience. And I learned a lot of that from Coach Few. I mean, you obviously Fewy, almost as well as I do. And he's a great in the moment guy, and he does a great job. People who I don't know maybe understand his personality outside of the business because he's pretty private, but he does a great job of being in the moment, and he does a great job of celebrating small successes. So, I think that's some great things I've observed from him over the years. And yeah, I'm excited. I mean, hopefully I'm more equipped for it now than I was a few years ago. Hopefully I continue to get better as well. And I'm looking forward to having a good practice on Tuesday. That's what I told our guys. I said, all I care about is, after selection Sunday, I said, let's have a good practice on Tuesday. That's it.
All right. Well, you're off to San Diego for the first weekend. Appreciate it, Tommy. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Great job.
Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. And as always, you can follow all our social media content at the Sideline with AK. Our content appears on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. Check out all the content at the Sideline with AK.